The recording was 4 minutes and 47 seconds long. That is not a long time. A cup of tea takes longer to brew, a lift ride 3 floors, a child's bedtime prayer. But 4 minutes and 47 seconds was all it took to confirm everything I had feared, and to destroy everything I had spent 11 years building with a woman I thought I knew down to the marrow. I know the exact duration because I have listened to it 23 times, not out of masochism, out of architecture. I am a man who believes that if you are going to demolish something, you must first understand its load-bearing walls. You must know precisely where it was weakest before the first crack appeared. And I had known, somewhere beneath the blueprints and the quarterly reports and the Friday night dinners, that something in the structure of my marriage had been weakening for a long time. So I built a test, and my wife failed it in 4 minutes and 47 seconds. Here is what she did not know on the night I told her I was dying. I was not dying. The letter from the oncologist was not real. The diagnosis, stage 3, aggressive 90 days, was not real. The consultant, Dr. Harlan, did not exist outside of a very convincing letterhead that my trusted partner Samuel Vance helped me produce after 3 weeks of watching my wife's behavior and knowing, with the cold certainty of a man who reads structural reports for a living, that something beneath us was about to give way. She sat across from me at our kitchen table, her hands folded around a mug of chamomile tea, and she listened while I told her I was dying. She cried, beautifully. She reached across the table and held my hand. She said all the right things, and then I went to bed, and she stayed downstairs, and I listened. Before we go any further into Marcus's story, and I want to warn you, what happens in the next few hours after that conversation is something that will stay with you. We'd love to know where in the world you're watching from right now. Drop your city or country in the comments below. It is always extraordinary to see how far these stories reach. If what you hear today moves you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more stories exactly like this one. Now, let us go back to Marcus, and to the 4 minutes and 47 seconds that changed everything. My name is Marcus Webb. I am 44 years old. I have been an architect for 19 years, and for 11 of those years I was married to Claire. I want to be precise about that verb, was. I met Claire at an exhibition in the spring. She was standing in front of a scale model of a residential complex I had designed for a waterfront regeneration project, a building I had spent 14 months drawing and revising and arguing for. She was looking at it the way most people look at architecture, not quite seeing it. But when I told her what it had been designed to replace, a derelict industrial site that had sat empty for 30 years, slowly poisoning the ground, she turned and looked at me instead. She had dark eyes and a way of listening with her whole face. I thought, here is someone who understands that the most important part of any structure is what it stands on. I was, as it turned out, catastrophically wrong about that. We married 3 years later in a small ceremony in the Cotswolds, her family's idea of small, which still meant 140 guests and a marquee the size of a respectable municipal building. Her father, Richard Holt, made a toast in which he mentioned his own net worth twice and my professional achievements 0 times. I noted it. I filed it away in the part of my mind where I keep structural observations that may become relevant later. Her brother, Dominic Holt, shook my hand at the reception and said, with what I believe he intended as warmth, Claire could have married a banker, mate, but she always did have a soft spot for charity cases. I smiled. I filed that away too. For 8 years, I told myself I was misreading the blueprint, that the Holts were loud and status-obsessed but harmless. That Claire loved me in a way that had nothing to do with her family's opinion of my earnings. That the marriage I had was real, even if the foundations had never been properly inspected. Then came the autumn of last year, and everything I had been filing away began to add up to a number I could no longer ignore. It was not dramatic, it never is. I came home from a site visit on a Wednesday afternoon in October, early, because the contractors had hit an unforeseen drainage issue and there was nothing useful I could do on site until Thursday. I went to pour myself a glass of water and saw Claire's phone on the kitchen counter, screen lit with a message preview. I was not snooping. I was reaching past it for a glass. The name on the screen was N, just the letter. And the preview read, "Tonight still works, leave it unlocked." I put the glass down. I stood very still. I thought about the structural principle that a crack in the facade is almost never where the damage started. It is simply where the underlying failure chose to surface. I did not confront her. I did not say anything. I went upstairs, sat on the edge of the bed, and spent 40 minutes thinking with the methodical discipline of a man who understands that the moment you start swinging a demolition hammer without a plan, you destroy things you did not mean to destroy. Over the following 3 weeks, I learned the following. Claire had withdrawn £4,200 in cash from our joint account across 11 separate transactions, each one small enough not to trigger a flag. She had, on at least 3 occasions, left the house in the evening while I was working late, citing her sister's yoga class. Her sister does not do yoga. She had deleted a significant volume of messages from her phone, but had not thought to delete them from the shared tablet we kept in the study, the one she had forgotten existed. His name was his name was Nathan, and Nathan had very warm opinions about what Claire deserved, and about how long she was planning to wait. I want to be exact about what happened in the weeks before the test because precision matters here. These are not impressions, these are documented events. First humiliation, the dinner. October 19th. Richard Holt hosted his monthly family dinner at the house in Henley, a 5-bedroom Georgian property he referred to without irony as the cottage. I arrived with Claire to find Dominic already holding court at the head of the table. The conversation turned, as it always did, to property values. Richard announced he had just completed a refinancing on 3 commercial holdings, a casual remark delivered with the precision of a man who wants the number heard. Dominic turned to me. "What's your biggest project at the moment, Marcus? That car park in Bristol, wasn't it?" It was not a car park. It was a mixed-use civic development, cultural center, library, affordable housing with a construction value of £34 million. I had been the lead architect for 2.5 years. I said, "Something like that." He nodded. "Solid work, honest work." He said it the way you say it about someone collecting bins. Claire laughed, lightly, briefly, but she laughed. I filed it. Second humiliation, the phone call, November 3rd. I was working late in the study. Claire was in the living room. I heard her voice drop, the register shift that people use when they believe they are not being heard, and I stood in the hallway and listened. She was speaking to her mother. "He's never going to be at Dad's level, Mum." I accepted that, but I thought he'd at least try harder. He's comfortable. He's been comfortable for years. And I'm just tired of comfortable. Then, after a pause, "I know I should have thought about it before, but he was different then, or maybe I just saw him differently." I went back to the study. I looked at the drawings on my desk, 17 floors of residential and commercial space designed to stand for 100 years, and I thought, she does not see it. She has never seen it. And I have spent 11 years trying to show her something she was never equipped to look at. The pain was there, but it began slowly to crystallize, to harden into something I recognized, the cold, clear geometry of a decision. Third humiliation, Dominic's message. November 9th. I found it on the shared tablet, a message from Dominic to Claire in a thread she had forgotten to clear. "You've given him 11 years, see 11 years, you're 40 in March." At what point does loyalty become just inertia? Dad says he's looked at Marcus's firm. Turnover's fine, but it's not serious money. It was never going to be serious money. "You deserve serious money." And Claire's reply, sent at 11:47 p.m. on a night when she had told me she was asleep with a headache. "I know, I'm working on it." 3 words, 8 letters, working on it. I read that message 4 times, then I picked up my phone and called Samuel Vance. Fourth humiliation, the assessment. November 14th. Richard Holt asked to meet me for lunch, alone. I arrived at the restaurant, his choice, a private members club in St. James's, and found him already seated, already drinking, already wearing the expression of a man who has decided something about you and is now simply processing the administrative formality of telling you. He talked about Claire for 12 minutes, about how she had been unsettled, about how she had confided in him. Then he folded his hands on the white tablecloth and looked at me with the practiced sympathy of a man who has confused wealth with wisdom. "Marcus, I like you, I do, but a marriage is a structure, isn't it? And if the foundations aren't right, if the ambition isn't there from the start, it doesn't matter how much paint you put on the walls. Eventually the whole thing subsides." I looked at him for a long moment. "You're right," I said. "Foundation is everything." He took that as agreement. He poured himself more wine and moved on to talking about his golf handicap. I sat with the certain knowledge that this man had been quietly encouraging his daughter to leave me, possibly for months, and that he had done it while eating a £48 main course on account. I reached into my jacket pocket and touched the small object I had taken to carrying that week. A standard voice-activated digital recorder, gunmetal gray, no bigger than a box of matches, I thought soon. What Claire and Richard and Dominic did not know, what no one in that family had ever thought to find out, because men like Richard Holt only look at the number on a business card, never at what is behind it, was this. 12 years ago, before Claire and I were engaged, I had entered into a silent partnership with two former university colleagues on a property development venture in Manchester. I contributed the architectural plans and a £140,000 stake, money I had saved quietly, told no one about. The venture succeeded beyond what any of us had projected. I reinvested, then again. I had, by the time I sat across from Richard Holt in his members' club, a personal asset position across 3 holding structures, none of which bore my name directly, of £6.4 million, not theoretical. Not on paper, liquid, structured, and quietly compounding. I had also, 18 months prior, been approached by a sovereign wealth fund regarding the architectural lead on a landmark urban regeneration project in Dubai. A project with a design fee, mine alone, of £2.3 million. I had signed the contract in August. The first payment had cleared in September. Claire had been away visiting her mother the weekend the confirmation arrived. She had never asked about it. She had never asked about any of it. She had looked at my monthly take-home, decided it was the full picture, and built her contempt on top of that assumption the way someone builds a conservatory on sand, confidently, and without an architect. That Thursday evening, I sat in the study with Samuel on a video call and opened the portfolio dashboard on my laptop. I turned the screen toward the camera. Samuel looked at it for a moment. Then he said, in the dry, unhurried way that had made him the finest contract lawyer I had ever worked with, "Shall I prepare the documentation?" "Yes," I said, "all of it." "And the other matter?" I looked at the voice recorder on the desk beside me. "That too," I said. Samuel Vance and I had been friends since our second year of university, a friendship built, like all the best structures, on a shared understanding of how things actually work beneath the surface. He was not a flashy man. He drove a sensible car, wore sensible suits, and delivered catastrophic legal assessments in the same tone most people use to read a shopping list. It was Samuel who had pointed out 6 years ago that I should ensure my personal assets were held in structures that would not be automatically included in any future matrimonial proceedings without a direct disclosure order. He had said it once gently over dinner, and I had listened, because I have always known that the foundations you pour when things are good are the only ones that hold when things are not. And it was Samuel who, when I called him that Thursday in November and told him what I was thinking, paused for exactly 4 seconds and then said, "Before you do this, Marcus, be certain you want to know the answer. Because once you build the test, you have to live with the results." "I already know the answer," I told him. "Then you're not testing," he said. "You're documenting." He was right. He was always right. That is what made him invaluable. The plan. I would tell Claire I had received a terminal diagnosis on a Sunday evening. A small digital recorder, voice-activated, would be placed in the kitchen before I went to bed. Samuel would be present at the family gathering I would arrange, under the pretense of discussing the will, 7 days later. He arrived at my office that Friday with a leather portfolio under his arm and a single printed sheet that he placed on the desk in front of me. "Sign here and here. This ensures that regardless of outcome, the Dubai fee and all associated holdings are ring-fenced. It cannot be undone in court, and it cannot be found without a forensic accountant and a court order." I signed. He collected the sheet, put it in the portfolio, and clicked it shut. "Good luck," he said, "though I don't think luck is what this requires." The Sunday evening was chosen carefully. Claire's family had a standing dinner the following Sunday, the first weekend of December, at the Henley House. It gave me exactly 7 days. Enough time for her true intentions to crystallize into action. Enough time for the recorder to capture whatever she chose to do when she believed the man she had married was counting down his final months. I placed the recorder on the shelf above the kitchen radiator at 7:14 p.m. behind a row of cookbooks that had not been touched in 3 years. I had tested its range twice that week. At normal conversational volume from anywhere in the kitchen or the hallway outside it, the audio was clean. Then I sat down at the kitchen table, folded my hands around a mug of tea I didn't intend to drink, and waited for Claire to come downstairs. She appeared at 7:31. She was wearing her dressing gown, hair loose. She kissed the top of my head as she passed. That was the last uncomplicated moment between us. I watched it happen and I held it, the way you hold the last photograph of a building before they break ground. Sit down, I said. I need to tell you something. The gathering 1 week later was held at Richard Holt's house in Henley. I had told Claire that my solicitor and old friend had advised that given the diagnosis, we should gather the immediate family to discuss the shape of the estate. Claire had handled the logistics. She had, I noticed, done so with quiet efficiency. Samuel was to arrive at precisely 7:15. The leather portfolio would be with him. The family was already assembled when I walked in. Richard at the fireplace, a glass of burgundy in hand, wearing the expression he reserved for situations requiring performed gravity. Dominic on the sofa, for once without his phone. Claire's mother, Helena, at the dining table, who stood when I entered and embraced me with the slightly too firm tenderness of a woman who has prearranged her sympathies. And Claire, standing near the window. She had worn a dark dress. She looked beautiful and carefully composed. She crossed to me and took my hand. "How are you feeling?" she said. "Remarkably well," I said. I sat. Richard poured me a whiskey without asking. Dominic began to speak, something about taking care of Claire, which I let wash past me. I sat with the calm that comes not from indifference but from precision, the calm of a man who has checked every measurement twice. At 7:13, my phone buzzed once. Samuel's message, outside. At 7:15, the doorbell rang. Richard answered the door. It was his house, and he was that kind of man, and came back wearing a mild expression of confusion. Samuel followed him. Samuel was wearing a dark suit and carrying the leather portfolio under one arm and a small Bluetooth speaker under the other. "This is Samuel Vance," I said, "my solicitor, and my closest friend for the past 22 years. "Good evening," Samuel said to the room. He set the portfolio and the speaker on the coffee table with the unhurried confidence of a man who has done this sort of thing before. Claire looked at the speaker. Something shifted behind her eyes. "Marcus," she said carefully, "what is this?" "This," I said, "is the part where the foundations get inspected." I looked at her for a long moment before I spoke. I wanted to remember her face before it changed. "I am not dying, Claire." Silence. The particular, pressurized silence of a room in which something structural has just cracked. The diagnosis was not real. "Dr. Harlan does not exist." The letter was produced to test, with precision and with documentation, what you would do in the hours after I told you I had 3 months to live. She said my name, once. "It came out wrong, too thin, too careful. On the night I told you," I continued, "you waited until you believed I was asleep. You went downstairs, and I would like you to hear what happened next." Samuel pressed play. The room heard 4 minutes and 47 seconds of my wife on the phone. Her voice was low and intimate, the voice she used for private things. The kitchen acoustics were clean. Every word arrived in the room like a separate load-bearing fact. She told Nathan that the timing was actually a relief. She told him she had known for a long time it wasn't right. She told him she had been speaking to her father about what a divorce settlement from a man with not much in the way of real assets might look like, and that the diagnosis had simplified things considerably. She told him she loved him. She used the word 3 times. She did not, in 4 minutes and 47 seconds, cry. She did not say she was frightened. She did not say she wished things were different. She said, "Once it's done, we can stop pretending." I waited for the recording to finish. The room was completely still. Then I turned to Richard Holt. "You told me at lunch last month that a marriage is a structure. That if the foundations aren't right from the start, it doesn't matter how much paint you put on the walls." He said nothing. "You were correct. But the foundation you were measuring was not mine, it was hers. And she learned that measurement from you." Samuel opened the portfolio. "This," he said, placing the first document on the table, "is the architectural contract for the Al Nakhil urban development in Dubai. Marcus is the design lead. The fee, his alone, is £2.3 million. The first tranche cleared in September." Richard looked at the page. His glass moved slightly in his hand. Samuel placed the second document on top. "This is a summary of Marcus's personal holdings across 3 structured vehicles. Current liquid value, £6.4 million. None of it is matrimonial property under current law. All of it predates your daughter's knowledge of it by at least a decade." He placed the third document. "This is a transcription of a WhatsApp message sent by Dominic Holt on November 9th, advising Claire to leave Marcus on the basis that Marcus would never generate, quote, serious money." He said it in front of Dominic. "You were operating on incorrect data." Dominic opened his mouth. Samuel looked at him with the expression of a man who has anticipated this exact movement for some time. "I would advise against it," Samuel said quietly. I turned to Claire last. She was crying, whether from grief or shock or something more complicated, I did not know, and I had decided, cleanly, architecturally, that it was no longer mine to determine. "You told Nathan that once it was done, we could stop pretending," I said. "I would like you to know that I stopped pretending approximately 3 weeks ago. Everything since then has simply been documentation." I picked up my whiskey. I drank it. I set the glass down precisely. "Samuel will be in touch with your solicitor about the arrangements. I trust you understand, given the recorded evidence, that contesting the asset structure would be both expensive and unsuccessful." I stood. I put on my coat. "Goodbye, Richard." He did not respond. He was still looking at the document. I suspect he was doing mathematics that would take him some time to complete. I did not feel triumphant. I felt nothing at all, which, in its own way, was the saddest thing about the whole evening. 11 years of a life, and when it finally came down, what I felt was the clean, hollow quiet of a building after the last worker has gone home. Just structure, just air, just the echo of something that had once had warmth in it. What happened afterward was not dramatic, it was simply logical. Justice, in my experience, tends to work the way good architecture does, slowly, invisibly, and then all at once. Richard Holt lost 2 of his commercial co-investors within a month of the evening in Henley. The recording had been discussed, in legal correspondence, in terms precise enough to make certain business partners quietly recalibrate their association with a man who had spent months advising his daughter on how to extract herself from a marriage to someone he had publicly dismissed as a professional irrelevance. His golf club membership was reviewed. The Henley house went on the market in March. Dominic's message, the November 9th transcript, reached the director of the marketing agency where he was a senior account manager. His employment was reviewed. He was asked to step back from 2 key client relationships. He has, according to mutual acquaintances, significantly shortened the radius of his opinions. Claire received what the asset structure entitled her to under the settlement. It was considerably less than she had imagined and considerably more than she deserved. She moved into a flat in Islington. Nathan visited twice in the first month and then less frequently after that. She found a job in mid-level administration at an estate agency. She started early, she left on time, and me. I moved into a converted warehouse in Bermondsey that I had been quietly renovating for 18 months. 14-foot ceilings, original steel beams, a study that overlooks the river. I had designed it for someone else originally. Then I had redesigned it for myself and never told anyone. That, I think, is the most architectural thing I have ever done. The letter arrived 6 months later, handwritten on plain paper, delivered by post, no return address. It was not long, half a page. She did not ask for anything. She did not attempt to explain or reframe or minimize. She said only that she had spent a long time looking at herself clearly, more clearly than she had been willing to do for years, and that what she had seen had required her to write the letter. Not because it would change anything, but because leaving it unwritten felt like a continuation of the dishonesty she was trying to dismantle. She wrote, "I am not writing to ask for anything. I just need you to know that I am aware precisely of what I did, and that the person who did it has been difficult to live with." I read it once. I set it on the desk. I did not reply. I did not delete it. And I think, in the way that a building, properly designed, holds its shape not because it is rigid but because it has been made to absorb stress and distribute it cleanly, I think that was the right response. Not warmth, not closure. Not the performance of forgiveness I did not feel, just the quiet acknowledgement that she had at last looked clearly at the structure of what she had built and found it insufficient. That is more than most people manage. The story of Marcus Webb is a reminder that what we truly value reveals with absolute precision who we are, and that the people who underestimate quiet men have almost always confused stillness with weakness. His journey from a single illuminated phone screen in an October kitchen to the clean, uncluttered light of a Bermondsey warehouse is not a story about revenge. It is a story about foundations. About the difference between the life that looks impressive from the outside and the one that actually holds weight under pressure. Marcus inspected his foundations. He did not like what he found. But he knew, with the discipline of a man who has spent 19 years understanding how things stand and fall, exactly what to do with what he found. What do you think? Was the test justified, or does staging a terminal diagnosis, whatever the provocation, cross a line that cannot be uncrossed? There is no simple answer here. That is precisely why we'd like to hear yours in the comments below. If this story stayed with you, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. Every comment, every share, every subscriber is what allows us to keep telling stories like this one. Thank you for being here. It means more than you know.